Hi, everybody. My name is Rob Abel. I'm from the IMS Global Learning Consortium, and welcome to our Learning Impact on Demand series. We're back here again to discuss what we are seeing right now. This time, though, about what's happening in terms of the transformation of university and college digital ecosystems, especially their academic technology ecosystems. And today we have three experts on this topic from the IMS higher education team. And I'd like to introduce those folks to you now. First, we have Cary Brown, who's the director of our higher education programs at IMS. Hi, Cary.
Hi, Rob.
We have Kelly Hoyland, who's our higher education institutional program manager. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
And I'm very good, thank you. It's great to have you. Finally, Jeff Bohrer, who's our technical program manager and working a lot in our digital credentials initiatives. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Rob.
All right, so welcome, panelists, and for the viewers out there, to get things started, I'm just going to use a very, very few short visual aids to introduce the topic. And, you know, this is a video, so if you want to spend more time with those, you can. I'm going to go through these very quickly. But the reason why we're here is that during the interviews with both higher ed and K-12 leaders in the last several weeks, all talking about what's happening during the COVID-19 scale-up, they've really reinforced this idea that their response has really been an opportunity to really accelerate digital transformation plans and strategies that they expected might take much longer. And that's been captured in some of the other videos that we've done. You know, the IMS member institutions tend to be a little bit ahead of the curve in adopting best practices for combining technology and instruction. And so, you know, they had a very solid foundation for a digital ecosystem of interoperable products in place, and that helped enable their response in terms of the scale up. But you know, what we'd like to do during this webinar is talk to our folks here who really what they do all day long is talk to our higher education members and get their insights and really kind of get them to express some of the summary views that they're hearing on this whole topic of what is the transformation of the institutional and digital ecosystem looking like? You know, how do you get to one that's both resilient and agile, and while, you know, laying the foundation for the future? And it really appears, and in many ways right now, the future is here. You know, digital education has been accelerated, it's arriving ahead of schedule, and it's a good time to ensure your digital ecosystem can adopt and adapt to the changing needs that we're seeing. So digital transformation, you know, is a broad topic. I just wanted to briefly talk about it, intro it, and generally what it entails. There are four areas of improvement: customer experience, competitiveness, profitability, and agility, that are generally the same strategic imperatives that undergird most digital transformation in numerous industries. And the question here for today is really, what does this mean? You know, the ongoing question as well, you know, what does the general digital transformation of education institutions look like? And specifically though, from our perspective, the transformation from that academic technology perspective. So the four imperatives that I just mentioned can actually be looked at in very, very specific, you know, deliverables that can be equated to improvements in really the academic experience, right, of teachers and students in terms of how technology is utilized, and can be looked at in very, very tangible ways that are shown here in this chart. And really what this is about is supporting the key strategies for a specific institution. So every institution will implement these a little bit differently. But ultimately, those strategies, of course, are measured by student achievement. For those that are tuning in that may not know too much about our organization, the IMS Global Learning Consortium, I wanted to just talk a tiny bit about that. It's an IMS has grown from some very, very humble beginnings to now being really one of the largest and most effective edtech collaborations on the planet. And what you're seeing here is the tiles of the 240 roughly IMS contributing members. They're a mix of leading higher education institutions K-12 school districts, state and national departments of eds and suppliers. And yes, it spans K-12 and higher ed and global. And the growth of IMS has been pretty dramatic. And we're now to the point where we've got over 5,000 individuals from a total of over 550 member organizations at all the different membership levels who meet in over 500 work group meetings a year to collaborate on really this invention of this next generation edtech ecosystem. And it's all based on open standards and working together on adoption, large scale adoption projects, and sharing in a community and collaborating. And I think probably most importantly, just the shared belief that together we can do a better job than separately. So on today's webinar, we're going to be talking about specifics that will relate back to this picture that I'm showing now, which is really kind of a slide that on our website, you can see the URL there. It's really kind of a maturity model of sorts, and it captures three important emphases we are seeing in terms of ecosystem development. The first is establishing that scalable foundation for plug and play integrations for really a wide variety of innovative teaching and learning applications. The second is adding additional interoperability that creates even a more seamless experience for the teachers and students and generates data that can help students, teachers improve their learning experiences and really help the institutions improve every term by using that data. And the third and final emphasis is shown here is this is capturing a better way to capture student achievement in a more comprehensive, more usable than in the past. And those are three very general areas. They don't always occur in this order, although this is a pretty logical order to do those things. So with that as a little intro, I am now going to bring our illustrious panel into the discussion here. And I wanted to start off with a general question really about how are we seeing IMS members really defining and talking about digital ecosystem transformation today. And for this question, we'd like to start off with Cary.
Obviously, these days, there's a lot of talk about online learning and kind of setting aside for the moment the definition of online learning, which folks have different definitions of that. When we talk about the digital ecosystem and the sort of the computer-based versions of the traditional way of doing business at the institutions, you know, although LMSs and SISs sort of started out as computer-based versions of paper-based administration tasks, what's evolved and what's evolving is this whole architecture or ecosystem of solutions across a whole range of categories of teaching and learning and administration, whether that's enrollment or teacher-student interaction or assessment. And how do all of those pieces kind of work together, both to present a coherent learning experience for the student, but also to optimize student engagement and student success? So how does the data flow between all of these solutions in the ecosystem? How do the systems plug together in a seamless and secure way? And how can we leverage all of the systems working together? And that's the real transformation. It's pulling all of the systems together, making them work together as a larger whole. And of course, all of those things are even more critical now in the wake of the changes to education delivery caused by the response to COVID-19 and the need for increased agility and responsiveness.
Well, thanks, Cary. That's very helpful. Kelly, what are your thoughts on what the members are talking about when they talk about digital transformation?
Yeah, I think Cary really hit it on the head. A good example of this is at the University of Wisconsin system. They took advantage of having to move to a new LMS to really redefine what that digital learning environment is going to be, including a key characteristic of interoperable components that's really allowing them to meet their goals of a fixed and flexible approach in their teaching and learning environment. So they have some fixed, consistent processes, student experience, and data management that allows flexibility to enable the pedagogy and not the technology to drive the adoption at their institution and meet their needs for teaching and learning. So that's been really crucial for them. You know, another institution I can think of that's really developed a good system is the University of Maryland, Baltimore County has taken that time to think about their analytics environment and set up an ecosystem that really meets their needs, which proved really valuable this spring. they've said that within a week of their shift to online learning, they were able to provide all faculty a report of which students weren't engaging online, which was like crucial and really raised their analytics profile on campus and became very valuable. And that was really only possible because all of their key learning systems were already linked and that data was flowing automatically. So that was a huge improvement for them. And that's what they're seeing in their digital ecosystem transformation.
Mm-hmm. Well, great, Kelly. Thanks for those nice examples. Jeff, what are you hearing about digital transformation these days?
Yeah, just to add on to what Kelly and Cary just described, I wanted to mention the enormous number of campus projects related to identifying students' skills and achievements and capturing them in ways that hadn't been captured previously, like on traditional transcripts. So over the last few years and really acutely in the months leading up to the transition, the pandemic, we've been seeing a considerable interest in the comprehensive learner record, for example. Institutions want ways of producing official university records that capture students' co-curricular skills and experiences, non-traditional credentials like badges and certificates. And so a number of projects across the country have just been stood up. And now with the CLR standard being available, there's a way to standardize the data and participate in this growing ecosystem of connected tools. So I would say that the CLR initiatives may have been considered a nice value add for institutions to equip their students with new forms of their learning achievement records. But now it's arguable that it is really critical that institutions give their students evidence of their learning and achievements and skills of all types, not just courses and grades, and that those records are verifiable and portable, really positioning the student to compete well in what surely is going to be a shifting job market.
So this is really interesting. You know, things are definitely moving faster. Let's try to dig into a few more of the details here. What do you folks see now as some of the more important ways that our institutions are establishing or have established that foundation for choice, agility, and scalability? And give some examples if you can, for especially for some of the viewers that may not be that familiar with how to do this. Let's start with Kelly on this one.
Thanks, Rob. So anyone who knows higher ed knows how important choice can be in their environment. So when I think of an institution that's really figured out how to enable choice while still maintaining those institutional requirements that are crucial to those places, I think of Penn State University has really implemented a good process for their third-party learning tools in their LMS. This process includes all of those key stakeholders on campus, including the registrar, information security, software engineering, teaching and learning with technology. All of those groups are part of those decisions when you're looking at the learning environment. And those stakeholders became familiar with LTI Advantage. And when they realized what LTI Advantage includes, it allows them to do a more brief review of those tools that are certified. So those tools that have met the requirements already set forth by IMS and the standard within LTI Advantage, they don't have to take as much time to implement them. So they can fast track those tools to be integrated into their learning environment. Mm-hmm. So, and that's so important for them because the digital learning environment and the teaching and learning environment changes so much that those faculty want to be able to take advantage of the tools as soon as they find them, which improves that student learning experience. You know, and that's not just true at large institutions. The Kentucky Community and Technical College system can also do this. They have a very small team to support their learning environment. I think they have a master team of 1 to support their LMS. So they are also leveraging those standards to be able to shift those crucial resources that they have, those limited resources, to focus on using the standards instead of building those custom integrations and being able to do innovative teaching and learning because they've made that shift. And as our, you know, and that's so important because our higher education leaders are saying that nimble is the new normal in this environment, not knowing what's going to happen the next day or the next term. So being able to have those places and those resources being able to react and be nimble is so important.
Those are great examples. And nimble, yeah, nimble's a great term. Just that's a good other term for agility, I guess, or maybe more understandable. Cary, do you have anything you'd like to add to what Kelly pointed out there?
Well, I would just kind of add on to that, like Kelly said, I think one of the absolutely fundamental things that enable all of the things that you mentioned, the scalability and choice and flexibility, is really understanding and perceiving your solutions in their need to function as a sort of a single organism, as an ecosystem. And that if you're relying on a bunch of proprietary APIs or point-to-point integrations to make that happen, you're going to get increasingly locked in. It will become more and more difficult to add new solutions to your ecosystem, to change or swap out solutions, or even to upgrade applications, because application upgrades tend to break point-to-point integrations. And so standards become increasingly important as sort of a conceptual foundation for those sorts of choice and scalability and eligibility, because they provide a consistent way of doing all of that, so that interoperability and integration, they're commodified, if you will. They're not a differentiator, they're just expected. And therefore you're making choices based on the capabilities of the tools that you're considering and how those tools meet your requirements, as opposed to some technical underpinning about how well they integrate.
Right. You know, it's the world of standards can be complicated and difficult to understand by many who are not directly involved in it. And brings me to the question of, you know, in terms of what every institution should right now be thinking of as table stakes, you know, so we've got all these different standards and possibilities of things that can be implemented. What are the real table stakes right now that really, you know, just based on the years of experience we've had, that every institution should probably have in place right now? And, you know, what are some of the practices maybe we're seeing in terms of putting those in place? I wanted to start with Cary on this one.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, institutions need, most of them have, a learning management system or some other solution like that that serves as a platform and an organizing principle for that ecosystem of tools and solutions that students and instructors will use. And some of those tools may be part of the LMS itself, and some of them, many of them may not. So there's a kind of a core need, that table stakes, a core need to be able to tie those external tools into the platform and tie everything together, such that things like learning tools interoperability, LTI enables, and the LTI Advantage specification. There are a number of other key solutions that are kind of coming to the fore as well that are absolutely fundamental, especially now as we're looking at how do we compensate for the disruption of student-teacher interaction in that in-person classroom experience. So web conferencing or video conferencing tools of some sort are absolutely required, because they provide that synchronous real-time interaction that we've lost with the removal of the face-to-face interaction. And of course, those tools can be used for recording and asynchronous delivery as well, but they fill that very necessary gap. What's been interesting to me is a couple of other things have arisen that maybe hadn't been as high on everybody's radar, but the gap, or the need, I should say, has really become evident. One of those is around proctoring and assessment. How we undertake assessment and how we undertake proctoring has been significantly disrupted by the move to fully online or hybrid online delivery of learning. And so understanding the solutions that are out there, how they tie into your ecosystem, and having that robust interaction with the learning platform becomes really, really critical. The other one that's really kind of jumped up to the top of the list is virtual labs. You know, one of the things that you lose when you lose the in-person interaction is the hands-on experience that labs require. And it's really challenging when you consider the range of the sorts of hands-on experiences that may need to be replicated, whether that's nursing and medical training, whether it's welding, or even just sort of basic biology and physics labs and things like that. So those have really emerged as fundamental requirements as part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, very interesting. Kelly, what do you think about table stakes? What would you like to add to that?
So I think Cary made some really good points, but even to take a step back, if an institution is just starting to build that foundation for the digital ecosystem, there's two things that would really help them. One is the IMS product directory, so looking for tools that are certified to those standards, because those standards mean it's going to be easier and less time consuming for you to start and implement those tools. In addition to that is the app vetting program. And in the product directory, all of those tools have been through the app vetting rubric. And that rubric is really going to jumpstart your institutional review for security and privacy. So it's got resources that have been put to a rubric to really think about what is it going to do, what are your questions, where are your holes. So it's going to give you kind of a jumpstart of where do you start the conversation with that supplier that you're going to be working with.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, those are some really, really good tools to use. And I'm wondering now, specific types of initiatives, or maybe that's too strong of a word for right now, really more certain objectives, that are going to help move an institution towards getting this solid foundation in place, and what folks might be considering now along those lines. Cary, what do you think?
Yeah, so, for me, when I think about sort of those foundations like that, and thinking about sort of the core mission of an institution, which is teaching and learning, and how that plays into digital transformation of the digital ecosystem, we're really talking about fundamentally, how do we facilitate the student-teacher interaction and the student-teacher relationship and the dissemination of information? And kind of going back to the question of table stakes, then ensuring that there's a mechanism to pull together that sort of constellation of tools that's available at an institution. And that constellation can be very, very extensive and very broad to enable learning and that plug into that platform. And that's where, really the first place when I talk to institutions, the first place that I direct them to look at is LTI, the LTI specification. LTI, is sort of the primary mechanism to pull together the teaching and learning tools and the teaching and learning aspects within the ecosystem. So go and look at LTI Advantage, the broader set of services beyond sort of core integration, and look at the tools that you're trying to use on campus, determine the ones that already make use of LTI, because that's going to give you a jump start right there. And again, going back to the product directory, you can find those in the product directory. And if there's tools that you want to use that aren't LTI certified and that aren't using LTI, go and have a conversation with those suppliers and talk to them about the importance of LTI certification, the importance of standards as a requirement for that tool to participate in the digital ecosystem as part of the procurement and onboarding process.
Yeah, so those LTI integrations really make the capabilities probably much more obvious, to the users, like the faculty who are grappling with different problems now, like the ones we talked about earlier. Jeff, what do you think about in terms about initiatives relative to the digital credentialing area?
When I was thinking about the concept of new initiatives, what I was, well, first of all, realizing that right now launching new initiatives is extremely challenging due to all the new demands on faculty and staff. So that being said, I think it's going to be interesting to see how institutions do invest in new programs, especially those that identify and respond to local or regional needs and opportunities. So when I'm thinking about new initiatives, I'm thinking about new relationships and partnerships, actually, even beyond the tools. It might be the right time to invest in those new relationships with local, regional employment industry partners to understand what those needs are, and possibly work to position the institution as the place for reskilling in the certain economic shifting environment where the economic conditions are going to be shifting. So capturing the students' alternative credentials in new programs like certificates or badge programs is going to be essential for giving the students evidence of their skills and abilities in order to compete for new jobs, different jobs, and so on. So again, along the lines of new relationships and partnerships, not only thinking externally with the community, but then on the campus, building those relationships around, between academic departments, continuing education, the registrar's office, IT. Those will be essential for successfully launching a new program, especially when it comes to digital credentials.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And we'll be getting back, dig a little bit deeper on the digital credentials, what's happening there in a moment. Right now, my next question, I'd like to give a chance for folks to talk a little bit about, what we're seeing in sort of the middle of the diagram I had put up, kind of the more sophisticated workflows, that once you have that foundation in place, you can start to focus on some of those more sophisticated type use of the interoperability, and any advice we might have for institutions considering that. Some examples have already been mentioned, but Cary, why don't you start us off on that one?
Yeah, kind of moving beyond those basics of interoperability, like you said. I think one of the things that most institutions these days are really recognizing is the value of learning analytics. And we know that that's been a goal in education for a long time. We're starting to see the emergence of both the capabilities and the value of that. And I think in particular in the current context, and Kelly alluded to this earlier, there's a recognition that learning analytics helps and allows institutions to respond more quickly and more agilely to situations where they need a quick response time. They have the data available to them. They're able to find gaps in engagement and equity, finding the students that aren't making that transition, like we talked about it, and having those analytic solutions in place. We've had a number of institutions that have come to us and said, this significantly helped us move forward more quickly. I think there's a recognition among most institutions that is a slightly more sophisticated way of thinking about your digital ecosystem, both technically and philosophically. And so it's kind of a post-phase one, if you will. But the importance of it is increasingly obvious. I think the other thing that's really come about in that same kind of context is accessibility. And that we've really had a spotlight shined on that with this sudden shift to new tools and this ramp up of solutions, and often solutions that weren't designed necessarily for education deployment, educational arenas, where there are very stringent and significant requirements from federal, state, even institutional policies about accessibility. And being able to quickly understand what those requirements are, assess if those new tools meet those requirements. So sort of being aware of the need and the impact of needing to perform assessments and what it may mean, I think is one of the areas that institutions need to be thinking very hard about as they think about sort of beyond those basics.
All right, thanks, Cary, for those insights. Kelly, what do you think about enhanced workflows for institutions?
Yeah, I can even think about within LTI. We've talked about LTI a long time, and that's been around for a long time, and it's been a good foundation. But LTI Advantage has really been able to enrich the experience for learners and faculty. They're able to, when I think about instructors and having to build courses that are fully online now that maybe weren't doing it before, now they're able to link directly to those integrated third-party tools without just dropping students at the door like you used to, like, oh, go here to this tool and then navigate here. Now you can direct them right to the resource you want, which really is going to improve the experience for everyone. And then also for faculty, even enrollment into those third-party tools is improved with automated rostering. So faculty can see existing student groups in those tools and figure out who's not using those, who hasn't accessed them, or who's accessing them a lot, and know which students you need to connect with. Learners are also getting the benefit through a more accurate gradebook in the LMS because those scores and comments are transferring back in from those third-party tools, which really helps them understand where they are in the course objectives and learning outcomes. So these advancements have really enriched the teaching and learning experience at institutions, both in virtual and in physical classroom environments.
Great, thank you. So we mentioned digital credentials already. I'd like to spend a little bit of time just talking about what we're actually seeing in terms of the market adoption of digital credentials in higher ed. Some people may be experiencing, some may not. So let's give them a little brief little lay of the land. What's the current focus? What do we see it expanding to in the future? How do you recommend folks get started? We're going to go back to you, Kelly, on this one and start with you.
Sure. At a recent meeting of our members, they talked about digital credentials and what they could mean in this kind of post-COVID world as being a real opportunity for a revenue option for institutions that may be really needed at this point in time. This pandemic has really impacted our economy, leaving many workers unemployed, and new certificate programs they could scale up pretty fast could meet their needs for that rapid reskilling to be able to re-enter the workforce. I think that's really crucial for institutions. Those institutions who already have other programs like that in place are going to be able to move quickly and respond to that market. But even those institutions that haven't started those programs can look at doing that fast and look at how they can make that happen through some of these different initiative efforts with open badges and comprehensive learner records and those things to really meet their regional workforce needs.
Yeah, I love it. Jeff, you're right in the middle of much of this, so why don't you give us your view on what's happening?
Sure. Yeah, maybe starting with digital badges first. Right now we are at a point in time where a number of institutions have really matured their badge programs over the last few years. I think of the SUNY system, who has developed a system-wide policy for creating micro-credentials across their campuses, and those programs then are being stood up on their campuses. A really sophisticated and mature policy is available for other institutions to learn from. Wichita State University is doing a tremendous amount of work in offering non-credit and credit digital badges as micro-credentials, not only for their own learners, but also reaching out into local high schools and bringing programming to area high schools. So anyway, just overall, the market has really evolved. IMS is currently working on a study to understand the growth of the use of digital badges. And so in the coming months, we'll be excited to release some numbers regarding the number of digital badges that have been created and issued globally. So stay tuned for that. Over the last couple of weeks, a few reports have come out of two different higher education associations that I think really shed light into what's going on in the market. So UPCEA, the Professional and Continuing Ed Association, just released a survey of their members regarding the alternative credential market, the certificates, badges, MOOCs, etc. What struck me in that report is that while 96% of their members are either offering or considering offering alternative credentials like these, only half have those credentials appearing on official university records for the students. So there's a lot of room for growth there. The other report that just came out is from ACRO, the Association of College Registrars and Admissions Officers. And they had been working to review IMS's comprehensive learner record standard to see if it's suitable for the CLR initiatives that ACRO has been supporting over the last few years. And their review came back very favorably. And in fact, they are recommending that their member institutions utilize the IMS CLR standard for any new digital records projects, anything related to comprehensive learner record initiatives on their campuses, and even migrating previous digital record initiatives to be compatible with this standard. So really some clarity is emerging in that area. And just, from a technology perspective, the ecosystem perspective, Open Badges no doubt has emerged as the standard for digital badges. And if people have referenced the product directory on the call today, and if you go there right now, there's 22 different platforms that have been tested and certified for supporting the Open Badges standard, which is really exciting because it gives learners who earn these badges incredible portability and verifiability of their credentials as they share them with others, including employers. So between the Open Badges standard and the Comprehensive Learner Record standard, the foundation for a really interoperable ecosystem is in place. And there's a lot of technology providers that are moving right now to adopt those standards. So if an institution is working on projects or initiatives in these areas, now is the right time to choose the right products that support these standards and influence those technology suppliers that you are working with to move towards these open interoperability standards.
So it sounds like there's a really good foundation out there and a good place. It's a good time to start moving on some of these things because there's a lot more coming together in terms of the ecosystem now than even just a year ago or 2 years ago. So thank you, Jeff. So we know we've covered a lot of territory in a very short amount of time here. And so we wanted to give the staff a chance to talk a little bit about the resources you can find on the IMS website to help you dig in a little bit more. And we wanted to start there with Cary.
Yeah, there is an enormous amount of resources on the IMS website. And the place to start is exactly what you're showing right there. That's the higher education digital transformation landing page. That includes information about sort of the conceptualization of digital transformation as you're showing here. It includes information about the IMS specifications and the IMS community work that go toward that digital transformation. And that includes digging down into details about specifications, et cetera. It includes a section on IMS standards in action. So that's a great place to see where, specifically how institutions are implementing standards to help them move their digital ecosystem forward from a very kind of practical standpoint. And there's also a whole HED playbook out there with information about how to find additional resources. The LTI Advantage Toolkit, which is not a technical toolkit, it's a collection of documents and resources to help institutions talk to EdTech suppliers about the value of LTI Advantage and certification on LTI Advantage. There are resources, additional resources around we mentioned the product directory a couple of times. The product directory is really, one of the most valuable parts of the IMS website. It includes a fully searchable directory of all of the products that are currently certified on IMS certifications. You can search by a whole number of different values and filters so that you really understand and have confidence in the products that you're choosing. It also includes, and Kelly alluded to this earlier too, it includes the IMS privacy app vetting results. So any product that has been vetted, you can see the results of that rubric and assess how those products and the privacy policies that those products publish, how they line up with the rubric that's been defined by the community, and therefore how they might line up with the policies that you have in place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Cary, for that overview. And Kelly, I know you spend a lot of your time working with our higher ed members. What would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say the other resource that we didn't highlight yet is our Centers of Excellence. So in particular, the University of Central Florida's LTI Center of Excellence is a great resource, and you can find it on our higher ed landing page. But they share a number of resources for individuals of all levels of knowledge. So if this is the first time you've heard about learning tools interoperability, or LTI as we call it, you can go there and learn more about what that basic is. If you're aware of it and you're more technically inclined, you can actually go out there. There's code libraries and open source tools that you can take and adopt to your institution if you want. So that resource, that Center of Excellence, has a wealth of information for you as well. And I would say, in addition to all of the resources we highlighted on our website, we really do have a robust community that we facilitate. So other higher education members getting together, sharing resources, setting priorities, and making suggestions around the use of technology in their digital ecosystems. And that community is just as valuable as what you'll find on our website. So helping guide and those institutions and identify where they are in their journey towards that interoperable digital ecosystem that really supports their teaching and learning goals. I think that community is crucial for that movement.
Well, that's great. And I really wanted to thank all of you, Cary, Kelly, and Jeff, for really that fabulous overview and the insights that you've passed along from the IMS members. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. I'd like to remind everyone that there will be many more videos that will dive even deeper into these topics in the coming days and weeks. So stay tuned to the on-demand program. We look forward to seeing you back here for more of all of this and in the series on highly effective digital teaching and learning. This is Rob Abel saying bye for now, and let's keep the learning going.